Today on We Need to Talk, we talk more about personality. What it is, we need to talk. All right, let's move on to the next personality intervention here, and that's going to be extroversion. So, extroversion is a big five personality trait associated with positive emotion and enthusiastic, assertive approach to the world. Extroverts tend to experience a lot of joy and excitement, particularly in social situations. Extroversion is commonly understood to be a social dimension of personality because social status and interpersonal affiliation are some of the strongest human goals and rewards. Accordingly, extroverts are more likely to enjoy the center of attention and tend to want to have a lot of people around. People who are high in extroversion make spontaneous, fun, and enthusiastic partners who are motivated to seek out thrills and excitements. People who are low in extroversion, also called introverts, need much less stimulation and therefore seek out less social interaction. They make calm, quiet, reserved partners. And then it goes into how there's two different facets of that, enthusiasm and assertiveness. But as far as extroversion goes, I think you are not wholly extroverted. I think it's hard to judge you because I think you're extroverted because you force yourself to be. And so, but I think personality-wise, you're less so. But I'd say you're closer to average. So I'd probably put you at 45 is what my guess would be. It's a little hard to say because we've had conversations where you say you don't like social interaction, or not that, but you have a hard time with it. And that you're not entirely comfortable with it. So I do think you like being around people. I do think you like interacting with people, but I think you like alone time, and that you need less stimulation. So that's kind of my thought.
Okay. I did get less than the 50. I'm in the 20th percentile for
What?
extroversion.
Really?
I'm actually an introvert. And this is something the Myers-Briggs test told very well and explained very well, that most people who meet me think I'm an extrovert, but I'm an introvert. And it's actually very strenuous for me to be extroverted. I've just made myself get good at it to the point that people think that I'm extroverted. But I think a lot of that comes from me being able to like put myself out there and like put massive amounts of effort into everything I do, even if it's not something I want to be doing. I can make it seem like it's an okay thing, but I get very drained very quickly being around people.
Yeah. And that's kind of the sticking point or the misconception around extroversion, introversion. People think that, if you're extroverted, like you do well with people. Like you could be extremely introverted and do great with people. Like people might mistake you for a people person. But after that whole social engagement, you'll just like go back to your house. You don't feel energized. You just like want to crash.
Yeah. And that I get very drained being around people. That is for sure. I know Batgirl says she's an introvert too. I could have guessed that one pretty easily. I think for you, Nate, I think you're introverted as well. You do a good job around people, and people like you, but I don't think that's what recharges you. I think you're big into thinking, and you being able to just do you is important to you. So I'm gonna put you low on extroversion. I don't think you're super assertive, and I don't think you're super on the enthusiasm side. I think you're probably higher on the enthusiasm side than assertive. I think you're probably very low on assertive. So I'll actually put you somewhat near me. I'm gonna put you below 50, maybe third. I'll go 29th percentile.
29th. So I am 28.
Oh, I was so close.
Dan.
That's twice now I've got within one.
Yeah, I would say everything you said there was correct. I have to force myself to be, more of a people person, kind of like outgoing and everything. I've gotten all right with it, depending on the circumstance. but it's hard, and more so like if I have a social event, like I just feel drained after. Like sometimes I get this thing where it's like I'll have a big event, I go home, I lay down in bed, and I just start getting with these flashes, almost like I'm almost dreaming, trying to process everything, and it's really annoying, and I just need to come down from social experience and kind of stuff like that. It's really fun. Like that time we went to those strip clubs, like it's a lot of fun, but it's like my brain after just couldn't calm down, and it was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So,
And by brain, you don't mean dick, right?
well, they're one and the same sometimes.
Okay, fair enough.
So, going to these two aspects here, we have enthusiasm and assertiveness. So, let me just pull up enthusiasm, and I'll have to read that meter.
Enthusiasm is an aspect of the big five factor extroversion. Enthusiasm is a measure of a person's motivation to affiliate with other people, their tendency to show their positive emotion, and whether they seek stimulation and excitement. People who are higher in enthusiasm are excitable, happy, and bubbly. They laugh and smile more than others, and people find them communicative and easy to get to know. People who are lower in enthusiasm are more reserved and more neutral in their emotion. They laugh and smile less than others, and people tend to find them more difficult to get to know. I think you're below 50 in enthusiasm. Yeah, I think you're below 50 in enthusiasm because I don't think you're like trying to be the center of attention. I don't think you're trying to be a standout. I think you're good at like showing that like you're not dissatisfied when in public. You can laugh along. I think you would be quick to laugh if you find something funny in public and in a social setting. And I think people can read you at least okay, but I think most people would probably struggle. So I think I'll put you below 50, maybe high 30s, low 40s. I'll go 39 for enthusiasm.
39. I am 21.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think that score reflects more of my base personality because there's a persona I put on top of things. All right. And the persona's there to kind of like ease social situations and everything. And like my base personality is more just kind of like dry and technical and boring. And maybe there's some enthusiasm there, but like what you hear on the podcast is not me like when I'm just kind of like thinking alone. Mm-hmm. And I'll put kind of that stuff on there, but it's more for other people. It's kind of like a display because something I learned a while ago is that emotions are a means of communication. Or let me make that more clear. If I talk to people and I have no sort of like enthusiasm in my voice or the way I speak, people have a very hard time placing that, interpreting it, and they don't know what you're saying or what you're feeling because something like 80% of conversation or dialogue is like nonverbal or something like that, communication. So a lot of times I eject it in there, not for myself because that's the way I'm feeling, but because that's how other people will understand me best. You know, whether I do it well, probably not, but I think that's probably a lot of what you're describing there. So for you, I would guess you would be, I think you're probably more towards the average, but maybe slightly below. It's a little hard to judge. I wouldn't say you're happy and bubbly, but I think you're kind of like me in that kind of way. I think people have a easier time to get to know you. And I think you know more what's relatable with people is kind of the factor in that. Cause like you can kind of like find these inroads like super easy with people. So I would say you'd be higher than me, but I wouldn't say you're on the higher side. I might be wrong about that, but I'm going to put you at, it's tough to do. I was thinking 35 to 45. So let's go in the middle, 40.
Okay. I'm below 50. I am 2. second percentile
What?
for enthusiasm, which I think is probably fair.
Really?
Yeah. If you were like, I get all the time people who say that they can't figure me out. They don't know anything about me. And I think I definitely agree. I am able to connect with people and like find that connection, but I think that's more about me understanding them than the other way around, and me conforming to try and get to where they're at versus showing them where I'm at, if that makes sense. Being like, oh, here's a thing I know that you'll respond to versus here's a thing that I respond to that hopefully resonates with you. And I definitely don't seek out, what this says, stimulation, excitement, activity, or fun extraordinarily, or extraordinary events. So highly solitary. The pandemic was great. I didn't have to see anybody. It was wonderful.
See, my surprise with that is mostly because you do partake in a lot of social activities, like D&D, like these sports tournaments, not like real sports, but esports, and you do a lot of those things. So, I would guess you're more like that, and I suppose maybe my perception of you is a little bit different than other people's because, like, obviously I don't understand you fully, but I think I have a good grasp of who you are. Like, so I think maybe that's a big factor in my judgment there. Maybe that's where it's a little bit of a blind side too.
Fair. No, I force myself to do a lot of those things because it's important to be a well-rounded person, to have those experiences, to be a part of communities. Community is important to me. I would prefer not to physically have to like do things to do that. If I can solitarily be a part of a community, that is ideal to me. That's why the internet is great, because I can do that. I can be at my house and still be a part of a community, still be taking part in things, without having to like actually go someplace and be around a bunch of people and their weird energies. I think I'm very energy sensitive, so I'm kind of standoffish to that.
Right. Yeah. And I guess that makes sense. Like, I guess it's a matter of how much of the personality are you putting on? Like, not in a bad way, but or how much of the persona might be the word.
Yep.
And how much are you forcing yourself into those situations as opposed to that's your natural sort of thing. Same with me.
Yeah.
Like I might have a little bit of pep in my voice, but is that because I'm putting that on, or is it because that's how I actually feel?
Yeah, I get people say that they can't read me. They don't know what I'm thinking or whatever all the time, or how I'm feeling. And my monotone and deadpan are very well practiced, so people can't take much. And I choose my words very carefully, and people notice that. So I get that a lot as well. You're well spoken because you choose your words very specifically, because you're not adding emotion to it. Things are how they are, and that's how you say them.
See, I have a hard time reading you that way. I think you're very straightforward. Anna's saying, yes, yep, you do. So she agrees with that.
She does.
I think you're extremely straightforward, and I think you're very easy to read. Like, I think you're quite the opposite. But maybe that's kind of the thing. People kind of interpret like more of the tone and everything with what you're saying, as opposed to the actualities of it.
Well, I think that when you don't project, that people assume that means that things are being hidden. And I think you understand that that's not what I'm doing. It's just like that's all there is. Like, what I'm saying is what it is. And most people will say, okay, well, there's more that's being hidden that I need to dig and find out. And the truth is there's not. Like, it just is what it is. And I'll tell you exactly how I feel. If you want to, and that's what I tell people, if you want to know something, ask. I'll tell you anything. Just be ready for the truth, because if you don't want the truth, then don't ask. And I don't think a lot of people can follow that, at least up front. So it adds like an air of mystery that realistically isn't anything, but
Yeah.
I'll use that to my advantage.
It's kind of one of those things where if you don't have like a motive, or like some people will assign ulterior motives if someone's being a little bit too straightforward. Like, why would you be saying this unless this? Occam's razor might explain it best, but those people might be in situations where they get caught up in stuff that they didn't analyze and then got screwed. So it might be a little bit of a negativity bias there too.
I think you're more on the line. You're more on the lines of having ulterior motives than I am with things that we say, and I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, but I think that you're more likely to have like, I said this or did this in a particular way because I know it will elicit this response, versus I said or did it that way because that's just how it is to me. And again, not necessarily a bad thing on either side. Just I think that's a truth that gives you a higher enthusiasm score than me, because you actually put more into things, and I don't generate that excitement or want to do those outward things as much.
Yeah. I think the way I've described that for myself is I'm very calculative. I mean, not always. It's like if I'm caught in improvisational state, a lot of times I'll just kind of say what I'm saying. But a lot of times I get very, very calculative, and some people can see that as a little bit psychopathic. I don't think that's true. I think it's just that the case that people aren't as conscious of the calculations they're making. And when someone is more conscious of those calculations, it just seems really kind of strange.
Yeah.
Like
no, I mean, that sounds like how a psychopath would explain it.
Okay. I'm glad. God damn you.
Glad we're on the same page. So assertiveness.
So assertiveness. I forget who read the last one, but I'll read this one.
I did.
You did? Okay, so I'll read this one here. I'm going to post it in the chat. Assertiveness is an aspect of the big 5-factor extroversion. Assertiveness is a measure of a person's motivation to put their ideas forward, influence others, and achieve social status. People who are higher in assertiveness tend to advance their own opinions, communicate in a captivating manner, and climb to leadership roles within their communities. They are sometimes prone to acting impulsively and may also be prone to heated arguments, especially if they are also disagreeable. People who are lower in assertiveness tend not to advance their own opinions, may communicate in a less dramatic, less captivating manner, and are not particularly interested in leadership or social status within their communities, though they can still be good leaders. So, for assertiveness for you, I think you would score higher than average. I think it's a little hard to judge you exactly, but I'd just probably say you're 65%, because I do think you push your ideas forward. I do think that I don't think you care about social status as much. I think you do a bit, but I don't think you're extreme with that. I don't know if you care about influencing other people, but I do think you like being heard and having your thoughts expressed and kind of listened to. I don't think you're prone to getting heated arguments or act impulsively so much. I do think you'd make a great leader. People will comment that you'd make a great politician. And I think that's partly to do with your assertiveness. So that's kind of my leaning. You're probably going to be actually lower if I was to guess, but this is my perception of you. So 65 is what I'm going with.
Okay. I am 68. So you were very close. I wasn't lower, but you were still within the 5. So, and yeah, I think you're probably right on with that. I'm not afraid to say what my opinion is. I probably won't make a big argument about it unless I'm very passionate about it, but otherwise I'll just, okay, we disagree. That's fine. But I do tend to end up falling into leadership positions just by, I guess, happenstance, or that's just how it kind of goes. And I'm not afraid to take action or be assertive if necessary. But not to the point that I seek out those positions specifically. So, yeah, I think you were pretty much right on with that. I think you're probably around average. Man, it's hard. This is like right on. I think you're going to be right near that line. I'll put you above, but only just.
Mm-hmm.
I I think you are a good leader. I don't think you necessarily want that role, but I think when you're in that role, you're good at it and you understand the bits and pieces and how to move things. But I think it's more from like a technical standpoint than it is from like a interpersonal leadership standpoint. But I think people respect you because you are knowledgeable and logical in your decision making. But social, I don't think social matters too much to you. Obviously, you said like your appearance matters, so I think that plays a role in the social dynamic. But I don't think it's to the point where you would like change things about yourself to have a higher social standing. It's just you would take a little bit of effort to do so. So I'll put you at like just above 50, like literally 51 or 52. I'll go 52.
So I rank at 41.
Oh, okay.
So a little less than you thought, but
Yep.
I think everything you said there was accurate. I can't say anything was wrong with that. I think I'm less assertive in some ways because it's like I'm a little too deferential in some ways, and maybe that's the politeness kind of interplaying there a bit. But it's like getting my ideas out there aren't necessarily like 100% important to me. Like a lot of times it is, but I'm also very wary of my ideas because I have a lot of ideas and most of them are bad. So, there's things I don't understand. So, I'm less likely to kind of put forward my ideas because I'm uncertain of them. Even if they might be a great idea, they might be a terrible idea. A lot of times they're not fully thought out. So, I would say I'm less. I'm also just less likely to be assertive, more like if I don't know, if push comes to shove, sure, but I'm not quick to push back on things, which I've gotten better with in a lot of ways. So I think I could be higher in this dimension, but I'm not terrible. I'm not like a pushover in any way. And in the way that I'm most assertive, kind of what you're talking about with leadership, I think that is kind of how people saw me as a leader. Like there's some people who didn't like me when I was a manager, of course. But a lot of people just loved me and they would like follow me because they trusted my skills and my judgment. And it's more like about that sort of thing because they hated bosses that just kind of didn't know what they were doing and just kind of like winging it.
I think the impulsiveness is something that we didn't even take into consideration, either of us, and that's a big part of this, where I think I am much more impulsive and you are not impulsive at all. You'll sit on a decision for 6-10 weeks before you would make a decision that you're not sure of. How many things have you left sitting in a shopping cart because you're like, I'm gonna wait 3 weeks before I buy this in case it goes down 50 cents?
Yeah, that's kind of me. I just defer my decisions.
So if I had been thinking impulsive, I probably would have put you below 50, but that's why we learn. We're learning.
Yeah. With that said, I wouldn't say I'm super impulsive, but I can be impulsive if my mental fatigue is high. Like, I think that's with everybody. Like, if I go into like a shopping market and I'm hungry, I'm gonna buy the whole store. Right? It's just a factor of that. Or if I'm just like super fatigued at the end of the day, I might buy something. Actually probably not, but I'll think about buying it. Then I'll start doing a lot of shopping and stuff and start like just thinking. And I do put a lot of things in my shopping cart and just forget about them. And it's like, oh yeah, do I need that thing? Nah.
I wonder if there's a combination of, because like there are a bunch of, this is completely off topic. There are a bunch of things that can trigger you to feel like hungry, right? Even if you've just eaten. Like, I wonder if there's a specific combination of small things that can trigger like minor bits of hunger, like smell, color, sight, things like that might be able to be combined in a way to increase total purchases made within a store. Such as when you first walk into the store, there's, they well documented, they put milk as far away as possible. So if you're just running in to pick up one thing like that, milk and bread is usually in the back. It's because then you have to walk through the whole store to get to those minor items that are perishable. You can't get delivered, things like that. And the more things you walk past, the more likely you are to buy one of them, especially with impulse decisions. That's why they have candy and stuff at registers, because those are impulse buys. While you're standing in line looking at stuff, oh, I'll just buy this little thing. But I wonder if there's a way to like trigger that almost Darren Brown style by having you walk through, like it starts off with things that would be an appetizer mixed with smells and sights and colors, and then to main course, and then to dessert. Like, would smelling marshmallows when you enter a place make you more hungry and more likely to increase your purchases, total amount spent throughout the store, than something else? Would you buy more if Walmart smelled like a bakery? Is a question I have, and I would be super interested to see something like that go into effect.
Yeah, like a full sensory experience.
Yeah. Nate, we need to start a marketing. Hold on, TM. If we need to start a marketing firm called We Need to Shop, and we need to we need to do some sort of scientific study that just skews in the favor of what we're talking about, and then sell the full sensory shopping experience to any one big organization and be millionaires. Okay, that's our idea. Don't take it, please.
I still think my idea is better of selling Hannaford, the theme song, to, like the parody of Stacy's mom. Hannaford, they got it going on. They got low prices and their own theme song. Sean's, why can't you see? You're just not store for me. I know it is absurd, but I'm in love with Hannaford. Like, we just need to sell that to Hannaford and make them just make the arrangements with Fountains of Wayne and just make millions.
That's well, Nathan, that's part of the total sensory shopping experience. Think about it. And then every once in a while you don't hear, but you hear subliminally in the background, like them whispering things to buy. Marshmallows, chocolate syrup. You don't realize you're hearing it, but you are. And anybody who's listening to this who eats s'mores tonight, you're welcome. So neuroticism.
Great transition.
Thank you.
So let's see. This one is you, I think.
Neuroticism is a big 5 personality trait associated with a person's propensity towards negative emotion versus emotional stability. Simply put, neuroticism is a measure of your sensitivity to negative emotions such as pain, guilt, shame, sadness, irritability, and defensive anger, fear, and anxiety. People who are high in neuroticism are prone to negative emotion. They frequently feel unhappy, anxious, and irritable. They may be less resilient when faced with problems in life. In the context of a romantic relationship, blah, blah, blah. Okay, people who are low in neuroticism are less prone to negative emotion. They are less likely to feel unhappy, anxious, or irritable. They are likely to be more resilient when faced with problems in life. So it's like that. How much negative emotion do you end up feeling, and how prone are you to feeling anxious and afraid and things like that? All the negative emotions. I think you're very low. I think you have your emotions now very under control. I think you just ignored them to the point of having issues before. But now I think you have better coping mechanisms. You're able to identify them and deal with them in a better way. But I think that your propensity to actually feel those negative emotions is much, much, much lower. Your sensitivity is very low. Honestly, probably super low. I'm gonna go below 50. I'm gonna go like 11.
11?
11th percentile. Yeah.
Okay. I am 14.
Ooh. Okay.
So I think you're pretty much right there. And this one's a little bit tough because I have a high degree of sensitivity to bodily sensations and stuff like that. And, some other stuff with that. But I think in general, like my emotional state is pretty much level. I'm not very prone to anger, happiness, disgust. I'm not prone to many emotions really. Like they happen, but they're more subtle and stuff. The one thing I'll say is that I have a high emotional inertia. Like Shannon, who's on the show before, she has a very low level momental inertia with her. You know what I'm trying to say, but it's like she can get super angry and then be like right fine after. Like she can go back and forth between her emotions like super quick. So she's quick to speed up, quick to slow down, right? But me myself, like it's hard for me to get emotional about something. But once I get emotional, like it's hard to come down from that.
Yeah.
Like if I get sad, okay, here's an example. Let's say someone tells me that John the Builder dies, and he's a great friend of mine. And so then I get super sad and like everything. And then about 5 minutes later, they realize that I'm sad. They're like, why are you sad? Well, John died. It's like, no, I didn't say that at all. I said this. And I'm like, oh, it sounded like that. Okay. So most people, they go from like being sad to just being like kind of like, okay, I'm still sad. I'm still sad for the rest of the day. So I do have a high level of emotional inertia, but it's harder for me to feel emotions like super fast and like that. Like it's kind of like I said, the sensitivity is very low, but that doesn't mean I don't feel emotions. It's just less so.
Yeah. Okay.
For you, I would say you're higher than me, but I think you're probably still on the lower side. It's hard to say because I do think a lot of your work ethic comes from a sense of like guilt. So that might point towards you being higher in some degree, but I don't know if that's like a real negative emotion in this consideration. So I would probably put you at, I don't think you're as close to the average. So I'll probably say 35.
Okay. I'm 6.
What?
I don't know. Negative emotions don't really affect me very much. I just keep a very even keel pretty much. And I think that's the opposite is true too. Where happy emotions don't affect me to a high degree either. It's just a very low frequency all the way across. But I don't really get afraid or angry or super irritable. The only time I'm irritable is when I first wake up, really. Or if I'm super tired. Those are really the two times that I'm very irritable. But, pain, sadness, anxiety, pretty minimal.
Yeah. Now that you're saying that, maybe I can see that. It's a little hard to think you would be more than me though, because I just feel like I'm less emotional than you. But maybe that's just the way you convey yourself. But then again, my perception of you seems to be a little bit different than other people's perception from this conversation.
Yeah. And then what the truth is different than that too.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
Yeah, that's confusing. Because I would think you'd be higher, but I could see that with you. I'm thinking about back in college and a little bit before that when you played Counter-Strike. It's like you would start screaming at the top of your lungs at people. And I think it was a bit of a troll there. And I think it's performative. I don't think you're actually having the negative emotion. I think sometimes you were, because I think sometimes you rage quit from time to time. But I think a lot of those emotions were performative now that I think of it.
And I think on top of that, that may not be a reflection of me anymore, That was almost 10 years ago. Like, that was a long time. Actually, I would have been 18 going on. No, I would have been 19.
Yep.
and now I'm 30. So that was more than a decade ago. So people change, over time.
Yeah.
It's hard to pinpoint each other like that. Like I would put you at a very different spot back then than now too, with the same. You probably would have been lower than me back then because you weren't letting emotions register at all. But you've changed. We both have. Everybody has.
Yeah. Yeah. One person in my life that's changed a lot in that kind of way, maybe not with neuroticism specifically, but my little brother, he was very ADHD diagnosed, and he had Asperger's as well, or has it still. But like when he was a child and kind of growing up into like the teenagehood, he was insane. Like he would constantly be making messes, screaming, running around, punching things. Maybe not punching things, but like it's almost like a wild child. Like take a child that's raised by wolves and bears and sea lions, throw him in a house, and that was him right there. And I don't know what point this happened, but he turned like 18 or something, and he just he just mellowed out. Like he is not that same person, and all that like ADHD. Maybe he has still attention issues. I don't know, but he is not at all the same. Something changed in his brain during that puberty stage where he's just not the same.
And puberty's fucked, so it screws your chemical makeup all around. So this one has two aspects to it.
Yep.
So the first one is withdrawal.
Withdrawal is an aspect of the Big Five personality factor neuroticism. Withdrawal is a measure of a person's tendency to experience negative emotions like sadness, doubt, worry, and to be calm. Worry, to be calm, reversed, or anxious, and to withdraw from or avoid uncertain, and unexpected situations. People who are higher in withdrawal tend to feel negative emotions more strongly, more often. They may be more likely to avoid uncertain or anxiety-provoking situations unless they are consciously counter this tendency. People who are lower in withdrawal tend to feel negative emotions less strongly and less often. They are likely to feel more comfortable in uncertain and anxiety-provoking situations, I can't speak, and unlikely to avoid them. Technically, withdrawal has been associated with activity in brain systems that regulate passive avoidance. All right, so essentially, withdrawal is essentially avoiding negative emotions. So the tendency to withdraw. And people who are higher tend to withdraw more and are more sensitive to those negative emotions like sadness and doubt. So for you, based off the other stuff here, I would guess you're pretty low. I'd say 10% because, I don't think you're very reactive. And, just based off that conversation, 10%.
Okay. I'm at 12. Yep. I don't know. I think we covered this, probably both of these, pretty well up above, but yeah, it's apparently I have less likely to avoid or withdraw in the face of unknown or unexpected. Can handle new, uncertain, unexpected, threatening, complex. Okay, so I'm not trying to avoid uncomfortable situations.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Lower than normal levels of doubt and worry, embarrassment, self-consciousness, discouragement. I think a lot of that comes from just like how I perceive the world is what it is, and how others perceive it and me are a reflection of them, not me. So I don't really worry about all that stuff because things are what they are. And I've accepted that sometimes things are going to be good and sometimes things are going to be bad, and everything will end up equaling out. So if I just stay right around that, then I'm happy to take the bad if it means I get the good, and vice versa. Like I'm fine with things leveling out in the long run.
Mm-hmm. See, I have a similar principle. Like, for instance, if you want, say, to see hot girls topless, Like, you have to be willing to see
Hot guys topless.
old women topless,
Oh, okay.
or hot guys topless, or ugly guys topless. You have to be willing to see other things. You can't get
Yeah.
just if you have this general thing like I want to see people topless. You have to be willing to see unattractive people topless too. Like there's a mix in bad and good, and you can't just be pick and choose. So I think you have the general sensibility there. It's kind of like a nude beach. Like at a nude beach, maybe you go there because you want the freedom of expression and everything, and maybe you go there because you have perverse nature and you want to see hot naked girls. And if that's the case, well, you have to be open to seeing wrinkly ball sacks. It's just part of the territory.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think your withdrawal is higher than mine. I think you are more likely to avoid a situation if you know it's going to be shitty. But I don't think you're going to, I don't think it's going to be to a massive degree. You're probably like right around 20 or so. So I'll go with, I'll go with 18.
19.
Oh, I was so close. I almost said that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty apt. I think in actuality, I'm probably more avoidant than this lets on. But I don't know. I think there's a childhood thing where if I'm in a bad situation, it's usually okay, depending on the circumstance. I don't know. Like, I've had times where I've been accused of certain things and I can just handle it fine. But if I'm contemplating that beforehand, I get very anxious and I'm more likely to avoid it. So I think in the presence of that kind of stuff, not as bad. But if I'm thinking about it beforehand, I can get that hyped up a little bit too much.
I think the biggest thing would be that I think given your history with being in like super uncomfortable situations and like the medical stuff with that, like around end of high school, beginning of college, probably pushed you more towards avoiding stuff like that because you had to for literal medical reasons at that time.
Yep.
Otherwise, if that wasn't the case, and maybe over time you'll continue to drop in the withdrawal scale and be less standoffish to those types of situations. But I think due to necessity, you kind of got some of those tendencies.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I think it reflects more my natural personality. And it's like pathos dog. Trade someone enough a certain way, and they're going to start acting like that.
Yeah.
And we'll go quickly through volatility. But, now that I think of it, the editing here is getting kind of long. And, I'm going to cut this up into a third part. So, hey, next week on We Need to Talk more about personality. We're going to finish this test and see what else we learn about ourselves, about each otother, about society, love, life, happiness. We Need to Talk.